What's up, fellas? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're starting off a fun series for the next 7 or 8 weeks that I'm gonna have on this channel. It's gonna be like a short form podcast with a bunch of different experts from all areas of running. And I think it's gonna be really helpful to a lot of you guys because there's some things that like runners don't really talk about that often, or maybe there's like not like a one-stop shop where you can go and find these things. We're gonna be talking to various people in different fields like sports psych, we've got strength training, which is today's episode. We have a trail runner coming on. We have a running coach who works across all areas of running from beginner to pretty elite runners. And so basically we are going to be answering all of your guys' questions on certain topics around their field of expertise. So today's episode is with Mary Johnson, and she is a strength training coach. And I'm really excited because you guys asked so many good questions on my Instagram. So we're gonna get straight into that. But before we get started, I just want to give a big shout out to today's sponsor, which is Factor. I have been obsessed with these meals, guys. Like, they make eating healthy really easy for you because they provide a menu each week, and the meals are made by chefs. Each meal is cooked from scratch by real chefs with really fresh ingredients, and let me tell you, these meals are phenomenal. I just had the shredded chicken bowl today for lunch, and it was so good. Like, I wish I could eat it all over again because it was that delicious. The order is delivered fresh to your door. It's never frozen along the way. All you have to do is basically, I just pop the meals in the microwave and then it's ready in literally less than 5 minutes, or you can cook it in the oven. For me, it's been really convenient just in a time-saving factor. Obviously, I'm really busy every day. I just have so many things going on, and honestly, I really like to cook, but right now, like, my life is so hectic. I don't know if it's living in New York or what it is, but having these Factor meals on hand have been a lifesaver. I get back from a long day of work outside, out of my house, and I'm like, the last thing I want to do is cook, and I check my fridge and there's Factor meals waiting for me, and it is the best thing ever, let me tell you. They're also a really healthy alternative to fast food. The menus are updated weekly. You can either choose your own or you can let them choose for you just based on other options that you've already chosen before. Honestly, they have basically anything that you could ever want. They have seafood, veggie, meat options, anything that's like paleo, vegan, keto, whatever you need, they honestly probably have it. I've tried them all out and all of those options are delicious. So they also have add-ons, and this week I tried the salted peanut energy balls, and they're so fire. They remind me a lot of my date bars, which I used to make all the time, and I just honestly haven't had the time to make them because I've been lazy. So having them literally shipped to me is amazing. Factor is great, and honestly I think it relates a lot to this strength training episode because a lot of the time we get back from the gym and either we are snacking on something that maybe isn't the healthiest, or just something that's not enough, that's not like a full meal. The thing about Factor is that I love just getting back from the weight room and just being able to go to my fridge and have a meal, like a full-on meal filled with veggies, carbs, proteins, already ready for me to go, and just be able to eat it within 5 minutes of getting back from the gym because that recovery window is so important. So if you guys are interested, you can get $90 off your first 3 weeks with Factor plus free shipping by clicking the link in the description or heading to try.factor75.com/save-90 and using code EMMA90. So highly recommend you go give that a try. I give them an A+ for everything. Let me know when you guys do try it out because I would love to talk about it more because I am just that obsessed with Factor. So yeah, let's get straight into today's strength training topic. How about you just start and give like an intro to yourself and your qualifications, certifications?
Yeah. So my name is Mary Johnson. I am a USATF certified coach as well as VDOT. I actually don't have any type of strength training certifications. We can talk about that, but I basically started on the floor working with people, just learning. And there is a test that I will openly say I failed. It's like the hardest strength coaching test you could take, the CSCS. And a lot of people fail it, and I was one of them, and I just haven't retaken it yet. But I'm really proud that I went out there and I tried to take it, and it didn't like demolish me. I learned what I need to work on, and when I end up taking it again, I'll be better for it. So yeah, that said, I have a lot of in-person experience. I worked on the floor at a strength and conditioning facility in 2015. I was doing semi-private training at some classes. And then I started run coaching in 2016. And I've been doing kind of a hybrid of both ever since.
Well, I'm excited to go through some of these questions. that my followers on Instagram asked us. We got a lot of questions for strength training as a runner. We'll just start off with the basics. What is the importance of strength training as a distance runner?
I think the first thing that you probably wouldn't expect me to say is you don't have to strength train. And maybe some coaches out there are like, don't say that. But you totally don't have to strength train as a runner. But I think you should. And I think it makes you a more resilient runner, and it helps prevent injuries. It doesn't make them never happen. No one's ever said that, but it helps prevent them. It helps definitely make you more stronger, more economical. It does condition a totally different muscle fiber type than we do in endurance running. So from a training perspective, you're training a total physiological system in your body. And that's only going to make you a better athlete. It's only going to make you a better runner. But technically, if you want to be a distance runner, you just run, technically. But I think we all know, like, we have our limits. Like, we're all going to get to the point where, like, something's going to bother us. Nobody is, I mean, you look at the top elite runners, they don't have zero imbalances. You know, they're constantly working on something. And we are all very similar to that. We all need to work on our imbalances. So lifting can help with that. I've had people have like legitimate DEXA improvements year over year from strength training and eating better. So there's so many benefits that any runner can get from it.
At what age do you recommend someone starts to strength train?
I see a lot of high schoolers at the performance facility where I work. So when you're in middle school and younger, a lot of it's just about like playing and getting good, like, you know, playing soccer, playing other coordination, ball sports, just being a great athlete and getting out and running around. And then I think when you start getting a little bit older, hitting puberty, then I think the strength training can come in. And then we do see people around high school start to come to the gym and start lifting and get involved in team programs.
There are beginner runners out there and they don't know where to start. Like, what would you recommend? How do I strength train as a runner? What are some good resources, or like, what are your recommendations?
Yeah, so that's a really good and hard question, because right now there's so much information out there. And I think the first place to turn to, you can look at truthfully, like a physical therapy office. So a lot of runners have gone through physical therapy and they've gotten started with the band work and just learning the basic movement patterns. And then when you start, I mean, social media is a great place, but like I said, it can be really overwhelming. So kind of looking out for people who are encouraging non-complex ways of working out. Not necessarily, I mean, look, you will certainly get stronger going to Orange Theory or CrossFit, but it has its limit. So like if strength training is really intimidating to you, Orange Theory might be a really great place for you to start. But there is a point at which you're going to need to kind of really periodize your training. And that might take 6 months, might take 12 months. Like, it totally depends where the athlete is. And then I would say shifting from that to maybe looking to a physical therapy office for advice, looking to a small, like a boutique performance facility. You can follow me on Instagram. There's really looking for people who are encouraging evidence-based training. And it's like, if it seems complex, it's probably not effective. And that's like why strength training is a hard sell. Like, much like running, a lot of it is boring, and that's how you get stronger.
Do you need to have access to gym equipment, or can you do everything with body weight?
So you can start with body weight, just like I was mentioning from the PT side. You can start with body weight, you can start with bands, but your muscles will get to a point where they will need further adaptation. So like, you know, that 30-minute run only got you fitter for so long, and then you needed to run for 45 minutes and then 50 and so on. So strength training is the same way. So sure, you can do body weight stuff for 4 to 6 weeks. And for a lot of runners, it's a really, really good place to start consistently, because it's tough to just make the commitment to putting it in your schedule. After a certain amount of time, you do have to kind of like level up and start lifting weights, but you can get creative. Like, you can I had an athlete during COVID lifting with kitty litter. Like, you can go crazy. It doesn't have to be a fancy, complex thing. But ideally, like, having gym equipment and having an array of weights is helpful.
What are some of the most basic exercises for runners that you would always recommend?
It's important to know that there are 5 major movement patterns, and they don't change for any sport. You can squat, you hinge, you push, you pull, and you carry. Some people say lunging is also one of those patterns. I never learned it that way, but however you want to look at it. I really think a runner should do all of them. Even a bench press, there's carryover. Like I was talking about earlier, like the bench press isn't just about getting strong shoulders and arms. You're using your core, you're using your butts, you're pushing through the floor. So, that said, I guess doing bench presses is a hard sell for some runners. So if you had to pick a couple things for a runner to do, I'd say definitely squat, definitely deadlift or single leg deadlift, use the back of your legs. And then things like body weight things such as planks and push-ups. You can elevate your push-up if you can't do a true push-up. And that's considered a pushing exercise. Something like a hold. If you can't do a chin up, just hold, like hollow out your body and hold and work your core. So I definitely think though people should know how to squat, hinge, push, pull, carry. But if you just needed to pick like 3, I would probably say like squat, hinging, and then some type of core, which is also a carry.
Is there any exercise that you see people doing that you're like, that won't help you at all as a runner?
This is another good piece of advice for anyone not sure where to look. Like, if you see someone saying extremes, like if I were to sit here and be like, don't ever do crunches, like you should raise a red flag for me. So I'm not going to say it. So anyone who says like, this is bad, this is good, is a little questionable. You always want to have somebody who's like supporting it with evidence. But in terms of like what could be improved, like if you're going to spend time doing crunches, I would say, why don't you spend time doing a plank hold and alternating a weight from side to side? And then you're working on your core. You're also working on anti-rotation, which is basically the ability to not rotate as we're hitting the ground. So having our hips nice and stable. So you kind of get more bang for your buck on the other exercise versus crunches, if that makes sense.
Do you think runners should also incorporate upper body work?
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned before, I think lower body is good, helpful, single leg stuff, balance stuff. A lot of runners can't even balance on one foot.
My balance is so bad.
And running is like everything is on one foot. So it's like, you have to work on it, even if it's like bouncing on one foot as you're brushing your teeth, So I would say start there. But if you do have the ability to stand on one foot and brush your teeth, then you can, I would say there is a place for upper body strength training, especially something like a pull-up where you're working your core a lot. And like I was mentioning with the bench press, like the bench press isn't just about your shoulders. Again, are there other things that have more bang for your buck as a runner if you have time? Totally. So like probably do those first. But if you're hitting those, then like, yeah, add the bench press, get strong with your upper body. It won't just help you propel up a hill and help you stay tall and resilient, but it's going to work other things, your erectors in your back, the whole chain works as a result of pressing up.
How many times a week should you strength train, and for how long and what time of day?
So it depends. Honestly, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to commit to once a week? Do it. Whatever you're going to commit to is what you have to do. Now, if it's the runner who's like, tell me what to do, I will literally do anything you tell me, then I would say probably if you're running quite a bit, twice a week, and then the session duration would just depend on what you're training. So like, you can get a lot done in 40 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes. It doesn't have to be 60, 70, 80 minute sessions. It can be. When I was really into strength training personally, I found a limit, like it gets to a point where it's difficult to balance both and just recover enough. And so like at first I was lifting 3 times a week and struggling to get in like 30, 35-mile weeks. And so I scaled back to 2 days a week of lifting. I was able to run maybe like 40 to 45 with a workout. Even that was pretty hard. So everyone, based on what's called a training age, which is basically like your training life, like how long you've been training. And that takes into account like middle school training, high school training, college training. Everyone has a different training age, and based on your training age kind of dictates what your recovery window looks like. And then you can figure out the lifting part on that. On a bare minimum, just commit to like once or twice a week for, if you can, do some squats and planks. Awesome. That's day one. Like that's your program. That takes 20 minutes. So it's a tricky question because everyone's going to be so different.
What days are better to strength train? Like your easy runs versus workout days versus long runs?
I'm sure a lot of people have heard, keep your hard days hard, easy days easy. So that's usually rule of thumb, is like do a workout in the morning and do your lifting in the afternoon. A lot of times if myself or my athletes are feeling just so exhausted, the afternoon after a workout, I will have them bump it to the lift to the next morning, and then do an easy run later in that day, to use the rest of the day as the recovery window. Lifting the day before a workout, you can do upper body. I mean, you could do lower body, but if you're trying to optimize your workout the next day, I'd probably stay away from lower body stuff. But you could totally do like pressing, pulling. You can do upper body stuff the day before a workout. Your body doesn't really, on one hand, it's like you're taxing your system, but on the other hand, your body doesn't run with your arms. So, yeah. I typically tell people to stack it with your workout day or push it to the next morning, and then make sure you have at least a day or two to recover before your next big session.
What is more important for runners, high reps, low weight, or low rep and high weight?
If you're looking at higher reps, lower weight, there is a place for that. So again, stay away from extremes. Stay away from people who are saying don't do it. There's a place for both of them in lifting. The lower weight and getting up to like 12-ish reps, where you're able to build muscle, something called hypertrophy, which is a fancy way of saying your muscle is growing. It's a good thing. So there totally is a place for doing sets of like 3 by 10 to 12. But then if you're able to go into a strength building phase, which is reps of like 1 to 5, and I would even say 1 to 5, I see a lot of like 3 and 5, maybe 6. 6 kind of bridges on that hypertrophy side. That is where you're really starting to build a lot of power, a lot of strength. So there's places for both, and you can mix them together. In a program, there isn't just like, you must only do strength, you must only do hypertrophy. You can totally mix both of them. It just depends like what your focus is for that phase.
How would you recommend strength training without it impacting like your running performance? So like soreness wise, because I know especially if you're like a beginner, you're going to get really sore. Do you have any recommendations on that?
Yeah. So now it's tough because people are getting back into, depending what you're racing, like people are getting back into racing mode. I had a lot of people I work with go through a strength phase where they backed off from their running. They spent time acclimating to lifting. It's scary because you don't want to give up your mileage. You don't want to give up your speed work, but the athletes who are able to like wrap their heads around this, they notice the little things that used to bother them, their Achilles, their knee, their hip, it stopped bothering them after they actually spent time in the room away from running. So I know it sounds like laughable to a lot of runners. They're like, there's no way I could stop running and just be in the gym. But that's a really good way of just focusing on, like, there's a really famous strength coach named Dan John. He says, keep the goal. And the goal is to get strong, right? And not be so obsessed with our mileage and workouts. So that's like my real answer. That's my hard ass answer. Just kind of suck it up and go to the gym and let your running chill out for a little while. However, if you are trying to balance both, you definitely can. And I would say just to make sure your recovery is in line, like make sure you're eating enough, make sure you're sleeping enough. Yes, you're going to be sore. And the opposite side too, like if you're not sore, don't think you're not improving. A lot of people are like, oh, I didn't get sore from that session. Like it probably did nothing. That's not true at all. You're not sore from running every single day. You are improving. So some of it is about like, if you're trying to do both at the same time, it's like sucking up the soreness. And then also just making sure that if you're sore past 2 days, maybe you pushed it a little too hard. Maybe your recovery is lacking. Like what can you be doing a little bit better to emphasize recovery? Also know though, if when runners start strength training, there's typically a really big adjustment period and it lasts like a week or 2 weeks. So getting very sore in the beginning is very normal. And so a lot of runners don't get past that like second week of being like, this sucks, but it does get better. And it literally is almost just 10 to 14 days. And that like first shock to the system dies down a little bit. Yeah, you might be sluggish for an easy run, but that's why like organizing the lifting for where it makes sense in your training is really important, and making sure you're not doing it before a long run, you're not doing it before a speed session. That's when like strategizing the best way to organize it comes into play.
Is there any difference in strength training for men and for women? And is there anything else that like people should keep in mind, like hormones and the time of the month and everything?
Yeah. So when you're going through what's called your luteal phase, so right before your period comes, and it can be, the phase is going to look longer or shorter for different women. But a lot of women will feel kind of sluggish. Things will feel really, really heavy. Even on the day of your period, you're probably feeling maybe really tired, lousy, crampy. But then right in that phase, when you actually start menstruating, is the best time to perform. So being able to, like, if I'm trying my last week, the program, and I'm getting my period, I'm like, yes, this is awesome. Because I know that I can totally push it. So the period isn't such a bad thing, although the first day or two can be kind of tough for some women. And then everyone's so when the period ends and the time lapse in between the ending and when the luteal phase begins again, it's going to be different for each woman. But that is just like, the shifts are something that some people feel very dramatically, and some others are like, oh, it doesn't affect me at all. So each athlete can be very individual. It also, for running, it can affect your ability to regulate temperature. So let's say your gym doesn't have AC and you could be lifting or running on the treadmill, and the running during that phase just feels horrible. It's not you, it's your hormones. And men don't go through that either. So those are a couple of considerations for the female athletes, for the female athlete. The female athlete also, has a lot less testosterone than the male. So, they are going to, I would say, like, they're going to see different, not necessarily different poundage increases from a strength perspective, but men are able to lift a little bit more than women because of the increased testosterone. Just something to consider. But then again, there's a lot of badass girls who lift a lot of weight nowadays. So, that's the world is getting pretty cool. But yeah, men don't have the extreme fluctuations that we women have to deal with, unfortunately. And I would just say in general, like, eating enough is so important, especially as runners. Like, we're burning so much when we run, and we forget to, protein is such an important macronutrient, not just for lifting, because people are like, yeah, you need to have protein when you lift, for runners too. And so having enough carbohydrates and protein and fat, but having enough protein is so, so important to repair the muscles that we're breaking down on the roads and in the gym. And I see so many runners just not having enough protein. So being able to get complete proteins into your diet, that's really where you're going to see, like, if you couple the strength plus the nutrition plus the recovery, then it's like you're golden.
Is there anything else that you would that like the listeners or viewers should know from your perspective on strength training that we didn't cover?
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Just don't give up. Just keep going and ask for help, because it does take, listen, personally, I was coaching strength training and kind of doing it, but it took, for me, I had a baby and my back really hurt, and I was like, I'm not going to run if I don't get stronger. And I basically just threw out my running goals out the window, and I was like, all right, we got to focus on not being in pain. And so, there's nothing like having the threat of running taken from us. But for those of you listening that don't have that, that's the best. And so, like, if you can think about, if you're trying to optimize your performance with running, strength training isn't going to make you bulky. It's not going to make you a slower runner. It's not going to make you gain weight and slow you down. It will make you better and stronger, but it does take a lot of consistency and just like asking for help. It's not a shameful thing if you don't know what you're doing. Like nobody knows what they're doing.
We all got to start somewhere. So
totally.
Where can they find you for help?
So I'm on Instagram. My Instagram is It's a Marathon. I have a site, it's a marathon.com. But I also have a business called Lift Run Perform. So we are also on Instagram as well as the World Wide Web. So you can find me either place.
Well, there you have it. We learned a lot about strength training today, and I hope you guys got something out of this episode. I mean, they were your questions, so I really hope that you got them answered, but make sure to go give Mary a follow on Instagram or check out her coaching. Yeah, I'm really excited to start this series. It's something a little different, obviously, than my usual, like, vlogging style. Honestly, this channel is just a lot of different stuff, so hopefully you guys like this like short form video podcast. The quality was a little iffy today, but hopefully the next ones will be a little bit better. I've got to figure out a better video situation. That's for me to deal with, not you guys. So make sure to follow me on Instagram if you want to submit questions for this series, and yeah, subscribe if you're not already subscribed already so you can be up to date with this series, and make sure to give this video a like if you like this style of content. Let me know down in the comments below if you want to see more series like this or even more episodes. Honestly, if the series goes well, I'm willing to add on more episodes. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out, fellas.